Cosas de la noche. Palabras con imagen. El análisis de los acontecimientos que influyen en nuestra vida con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.
Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Welcome to Mexico, Mr. Biden and Mr. Trudeau, like a good neighbors and commercial partners. Welcome to Fentanyl Land. I'm Gilberto Lozano. I am a leader of the citizen movement in Mexico, Frente Nacional, against this dictatorship. We are non-political. I am ex-alumni of Stanford University and also I lived 2 years in Quebec, Canada, Monsieur Trudeau. The people of Mexico don't recognize to Manuel Noriega Lopez Obrador like our representative. He's a serial killer of journalists, activists, and middle class. Manuel Noriega Lopez Obrador is a communist dictator, friend of killers like Díaz-Canel, Evo Morales, Daniel Ortega, Nicolás Maduro. The Mexican people didn't vote for this socialist vision. They, like charlatans, him, Lopez Obrador and Marcelo Double-Face Ebrard, are only a communist puppets. Yes, they work for the Soviet acts, Iranian, Russia, China. He loves Joseph Stalin, and in a publicly recognized inspiration in Fidel Castro, in Che Guevara, in Lenin. You know, he doesn't honor war. He's enemy of democracy, freedom, truth, and justice. We are in a civil war. 115,000 murders in only 4 years, and also 40,000 people disappear. They are fighting against Lopez Obrador. But we need that you don't call friend, because he is a stone in the shoes for the Mexican people. We are moving to make great Mexico. We have a vision for the next 30 years. It's not the vision of Lopez. God bless America, Canada, and USA and Mexico.
As you heard from Mr. Gilberto Lozano, who has every Friday a space on this broadcast with many members of his non-profit organization, Frena, that is an organization that is requesting and demanding the stop of the corrupt government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador. He is asking to Mr. President Biden, stop and don't call him amigo, because Mr. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador is a law breaker. And he is receiving a sponsorship from the Foro do Sao Paulo, communist dictators endorsed by Vladimir Putin to create a big trouble on the Mexican-American border. If you see all the migrants that are clogging the border are from Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Bolivia, and countries that have a communist dictator on the government. Latin America is suffering a big impact. The Cold War moves to Mexico, and the Mexican-American border is now the Iron Wall. and American citizens on the border towns are also divided, but not by the border line. As you are going to see on the press reports, are divided by this political situation, because Biden administration is converting the border problem in a political issue that is not going to be solved and is becoming a time bomb for America. Please, never hesitate or underestimate that the problems of America could begin or get in by the border. Hi there. Tonight, American President Joe Biden is landing on the Air Force One on Mexico to meet the Mexican President Andrés Manuel Lopez Obrador. I will not repeat everything Americans know about the border, broken border, out of control border. In fact, a reporter asked to Alejandro Mayorkas, director of Homeland Security, if he's planning to resign. And he says, no. I can't believe it. Mayors and governors of many of the most affected cities by the big migration wave are complaining because they don't have enough resources to feed, to provide rooms, to provide medical services, to provide everything to this huge wave of migrants that last week was almost 5,000 migrants crossing illegally the border every day. I am migrant. You can catch my broken accent. And I love to be migrant, and I love United States of America. But the essential is that it's important follow the whole process. It's not just cross the border, here I am, give me food stamps, give me a job, give me papers. No. For me, take me years paying taxes, working hard until, and they took my fingerprints and everything until they prove I have not a criminal background, and I proudly swear on the Bible as a USA citizen. I love it, and I love this country. And if I have to give my blood for this country, I will, without hesitation. It is why tonight I am telling Americans that I met thousands and thousands of people that has the citizenship, American citizenship, and they don't speak English. They have no idea about the laws, about the history of this wonderful country. And I really feel frustrated and sad. But more sad and more frustrated you are going to feel as soon as I tell you what I found out. This huge migrants wave is generating a huge market on the sanctuary cities for driver license and for many legal papers. And for example, I have an evidence that in San Francisco, California, there is a Brazilian driving school, and many of them are managed by aliens too. Driving schools are the perfect hook to get customers and to follow this chain of corruption, because it's corruption. How can you understand a migrant just make a phone call to the driving school and they tell you, come this, wire me $5,000, come next week, and the lady flew from Atlanta to San Francisco. Monday, apparently, have all the tests, driving and theoric test, written test. And the same day, she received a provisional driver license and is expecting the driver license by UPS, FedEx, or American Mail sent by the driving school. The driving school charge a lot of money because they have apartment addresses that they rent to people who likes a driver license. So when they receive on this address the driver license, they take it and they send to the person back. Easy. I remember when I have the test for my American driver license, I have to take the defensive driving course. I have to read the manual of the state of Georgia for new drivers in Georgia, almost 50 pages, very illustrated. Now it's on internet. And I already have an international driver license. No, I have to apply for the test. I pass it, thanks to Lord, and I have the driving test. I pass it too, and I have more than 32 years driving in Georgia. But now, this is my call for the American insurance companies. How in the hell you are going to manage this illegal market? Because it's illegal. On driver licenses that don't require a full test. Out of the record, my sources told me that the sanctuary cities are in combination with a big mob because they also give licenses to the drug cartels that are operating in Georgia. WSB interviewed the DEA director for Atlanta, David Ramson, who says in last May, that Atlanta has 10 Mexican drug cartels supported by the Russian mob. And they handle many labs to process all kinds of drugs. And it's hard, especially with the fentanyls coming from China to Mexico. And it is why I like to dedicate this broadcast to American citizens who are not very well involved about the Mexican-American border problem. It's not that thousands, 5,000, 6,000 aliens are crossing the border. Also is because they carry backpacks with fentanyls and all kinds of drugs, chemical substances. We don't know. It can be a terrorist attack in America and nobody knows. Because remember, Alejandro Mayorkas released all undocumented people from jails and they give an open appointment in an immigration court. Obviously, the majority never back to court, and they are free in America. Texas authorities, the Governor Greg Abbott, announced that they detained 2 Iranian terrorists who were planning to go and kill former President George W. Bush. Dems remain sip on their lips, quiet, ignoring the big problem. And I can prove they are ignoring the big border problem because this noon or this afternoon, President Biden land in El Paso, Texas. And no surprise, the city was clean. No migrants sleeping on the sidewalks. No people, no trash. What happens? They hide it in hotels under American taxpayers' pay. But that is not the problem. That means that they are making up the big problem and they are not fixing. It is why Alexandro Mayorkas says that he is not going to resign. When an ABC News reporter asked if he plans to resign because the border is out of control. And every network say the same situation. Fox, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, all of them are proving. In fact, one situation that really makes me feel inspired to make this broadcast was that in Fox News, a news reporter was broadcasting a story about the visit of President Biden to the border, and she was relating how the streets were clean and everything organized, when the day before yesterday was messy, plenty of people, human waste on the streets, trash everywhere. And she says, I cannot hide this. I am married with a border patrol agent that in sometimes he come back to home injured because people who cross the border attack them. Where is President Biden? Is he visiting these border patrol agents? Yeah, this afternoon was the picture opportunity because Joe Biden never visited El Paso since 2018 when he was vice president or something like that. I don't remember. I don't have the facts handy, but today was the first visit as president on his administration. And I believe that the big problem that I relate on my latest book, America Underground, and I'm not complaining against immigration. This is a country of migrants. The problem is that I detect and I denounce in my book that drug cartels buy the services of fancy attorneys or immigration lawyers to pay for the green card. And they process very fast, no matter the background of the person. And I evidence also how many people that don't qualify for green card or USA citizenship because they lie, they break the system, they produce a fake marriage, but they are citizens of the United States of America. I don't understand. I believe that become a USA citizen is like a recognition of your effort on life, of trying to be a person that qualifies to live in the first world. When I was a kid and I saw the moonshot, I was very impressed. The first thing I did is I asked my dad, buy me an American flag. And I put in my bureau in my bedroom. Every day I saw this with the highest respect. And when I come to live in this country, I follow all these tips and all the protocols to apply for that privilege of become USA citizen. After a long time talking with a federal agent, they prove me that I don't need to apply because my Native American roots prove that my family were part of a Native American tribe. But I like to follow the protocol. I like to follow everything because if you have to like to do something in life, you have to learn and respect the procedures. Otherwise, you are not enough smart to feel that you deserve in a USA citizenship. The day the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporter interviewed about my dual citizenship, she asked me why I applied. I answered, the newspaper is on my page. In you just Google Francisco Duran Rosillo or Frank Duran, and he's there. And I answered part of what I say you. And the reporter told me, like testing me, Mr. Duran, what you will do if U.S. and Mexico break relations? My answer was, I will still love and respect both countries because I will see a situation like that as a divorce. When parents divorce, not necessarily kids stop loving one of those. I love United States of America because he's my father and makes me strong, and I love Mexico because he's my mother, because saw me born. So both of the countries that share many situations in the past are developing situations. And if the book of Alan Rading, former correspondent of the NYT, New York Times, in Mexico City, says in his book, Distant Neighbors, that the contrast between Mexico and US is very notorious, just crossing the border. If my former teacher and writer, Carlos Fuentes, says that the Mexican-American border is the largest scare, bleeding scare in the world because daily bleeds from 3,000 to 1,000 dead people, what happened is there are many manipulations, especially now that Mexican drug cartels took control of the border. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, denounced that, but nobody listened to him. He sent the National Guard and the state police to line up along the border and stop this migration. Immigration officers have orders of don't support that. Even the federal government sued Greg Abbott for trying to stop the undocumented immigration. And nobody can understand why. Immigration, and I'm not telling this, in one of my broadcasts, I mentioned a long time ago that I was reading a Time magazine and I found on a little tiny column in a corner on the bottom of one article that the problems of the future are the water and the immigration. Water is hard to find on the planet. Many rivers and lakes are drying, and the poles are melting, and we don't pay attention to that. Americans have a big responsibility. And I have nothing against President Biden. Even I am Republican, because I am conservative and I am against the abortion. President Biden is doing good things on the health plan that President Obama began. I really admire that from both. President Biden, recently, when the Ukrainian president was in the White House, they asked him why not send more military support to Ukraine, and he smartly answered, I don't like to start the third world war. A smart answer. But the immigration on the Mexican-American border is becoming the iron wall, la cortina de hierro. The Cold War come back. And if you search my previous broadcast, you can find a special where I interview leaders in Nicaragua that denounce how Vladimir Putin built a training center in Nicaragua to prepare not only activists to promote the communism. He is training snipers, terrorists, and a lot of people who is coming on the migrant caravans to the Mexican-American border because they like to destabilize or take out of control the border. Honestly, I am infuriated. And sometimes, sorry, I speak 3 languages and I apologize. You know, my English is broken and I could make many mistakes. But what I can do, what I can fail is lie to you. Because America is a great country of migrants, a great melting pot, a great country dedicated to respect democracy, justice, freedom, and thanks to the armed forces, we have all of that. Don't lose it, Americans. Lord bless America, because it's the best country in the world. With my own experience living in many countries, I can tell you, this is the best country in the world. Take a minute apart and make an introspection about how nice you live here. And the day you want to ask me how people live in other countries, I send you pictures. Lord bless America. I love you, Americans. Thank you for this opportunity. And thanks to migrants. But don't buy the citizenship as Alejandro Mayorkas is selling to support Democratic candidates for the presidency. Don't buy driver license paying these middle people to skip the test and every protocol. Learn how to drive in America, because you are jeopardizing lives of many Americans driving stupidly without know and without understand the expressway signals and rules. That is very stupid. I love you. Have a great night. Thank you.
A federal judge in Mexico City has just stopped the extradition to the U.S. of a suspected kingpin in its Sinaloa drug cartel. Mexico's foreign minister earlier said any extradition of Ovidio Guzman would not be immediate for legal reasons. The operation to arrest Guzman on Thursday triggered a wave of violence as gunmen went onto a rampage to try to free him. Mexico's defense secretary says 29 people were killed, including 10 military personnel. Our Rafael Romo has a story for you.
Residents in the Mexican northern city of Culiacan woke up to what seemed to many like a war zone. Roads were blocked throughout the city, including this one leading to the airport. This is how criminal groups responded after this man, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, was detained by Mexican security forces. His arrest produced clashes between cells of his criminal gang and Mexican security forces.
Momentos después de la detención,
Mexican Defense Minister Crescencio Sandoval said that after Guzman's detention, cells from his criminal group staged 19 blockades and armed attacks in different parts of the city, including its international airport and an Air Force base. Ovidio Guzman Lopez, also known as the Mouse, is the son of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The former leader of the Sinaloa cartel was convicted in the U.S. in 2019 of 10 counts related to leading a criminal organization, drug trafficking, and firearms charges. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. Mexican Defense Minister Sandoval said Ovidio, El Chapo's son, leads the criminal group known as the Miners, part of the Cartel of the Pacific, which is responsible for violence in 4 Mexican states and the country's northwest region. And according to the U.S. State Department, law enforcement investigations indicate Ovidio and his brother, Joaquin Guzman Lopez, function in high-level command and control roles of their own drug trafficking organization, the Guzman Lopez Transnational Criminal Organization, under the umbrella of the Sinaloa cartel. The Mexican government had already tried to capture Ovidio Guzman Lopez in October 2019. After he was detained, the Sinaloa cartel unleashed a heavily armed fighting force. A gun battle in the streets of Culiacan ensued, putting the lives of countless civilians at risk. It quickly became painfully obvious the Sinaloa cartel had outmaneuvered and overpowered Mexican security forces. In the end, Mexican authorities decided to release Guzman to prevent further bloodshed. Rafael Romo, CNN, Atlanta.
I will visit the border myself this Sunday in El Paso to assess border enforcement operations, meet with the local officials and community leaders, and the folks at the border sending me what they need that they don't have. Try to convince my Republican colleagues they should do something.
That's the same press conference where he referred to Kamala Harris as President Harris. Press conference where he referred to Kamala Harris as President Harris. As you heard there, he's going to visit El Paso, Texas tomorrow. The mayor there recently declared a state of emergency. Border agents in the sector already encountered over 106,000 migrants since October. That's a 260% increase from last year. Here to react is former El Paso council member Claudia Rodriguez. Good morning, Claudia. The reports are that El Paso is being cleaned up in preparation for Joe Biden. I'm curious, who's doing that cleanup and why?
Good morning. Yes, so it's very unfortunate that the cleanup started earlier this week. I spoke to officials yesterday and they notified me that there was absolutely 0 community releases from the Border Patrol. So what that means is that when Border Patrol has these encounters, they take them, they process them, and then they release them into the city of El Paso, and we had 0. Border Patrol agents began to clean El Paso. I'm sure that they are just as disappointed because the whole purpose of President Biden coming to El Paso is for him to see firsthand the mess that is going on here, firsthand, something that has never happened in El Paso before. Mind you, we are a city of immigrants. We have people coming into our community every single day, and they're coming here legally. Everybody in El Paso has a migration story, and I mean, it defeats the purpose of President Biden coming to El Paso by cleaning up the streets the way they are.
You know, Claudia, my co-host Emily Campagno brought this up. It reminds you of the Olympics, sort of cleaning up and creating these fake cities in order to put on a good face. For the public, for the world. For the public, for the world. But who do you think they're because Joe Biden clearly are attempting to manipulate here? Because Joe Biden clearly, surely has an idea of what's happening at the southern border. I mean, his policies aren't because he doesn't understand, right? At the very least, he's probably put it on Fox News before and seen some of these images. So what is getting accomplished by all of a sudden making El Paso look different than it normally does?
I mean, we're not crazy. you know, something really bad happened in El Paso. We are the sixth largest city in the state of Texas. We are the first largest city on the border. And we had something happen in El Paso that was absolutely unprecedented. And it happened under President Joe Biden's watch. I decided to ring the alarm in May. I started to tell the mayor you will declare an emergency. Fast forward to December, finally declares an emergency. At that point, I start calling for President Biden to come down to El Paso and see what is going on here. And I'm very happy that he answered that call, but again, very disappointed that we cleaned it all up as if nothing ever happened here.
Yeah. Well, Claudia, so then what do you expect to come out of this trip?
I have no idea. I mean, like I said, it's very unfortunate. The people of El Paso are very frustrated. It's something that we were hoping that we can show the world. You know, I've been very vocal about this. Show the world what is happening in El Paso. Inviting the president, finally coming to El Paso for the very first time, or the border, I should say, for the very first time in his life, and we're showing him this pretty picture of business as usual, and that's not what happened. That wasn't the purpose of him coming here.
Yeah, well, in the course of our conversation, then it occurs to me what the purpose is, and we're going to create images of Joe Biden seeing a city that...
Will, over to you in El Paso, where you have some guests with you that are going to help explain what life is really like there in El Paso right now.
I do, thank you. So for the first time in his presidency, Joe Biden is visiting the southern border. Comes in today, and he's going to start right here in El Paso, Texas. And ahead of the big visit, the city is cleaning up migrant camps where thousands were living after being released by Border Patrol. Now, our next guest want the president to see what is actually happening. We've been having a fascinating conversation. It's already begun this morning. It's Guadalupe Giner. She is El Paso County Judge candidate, and Rosie, a longtime El Paso resident. Rosie is not sharing her last name. I didn't make a mistake here. And we'll get to why in just one moment Rosie is not sharing her last name. But let's just pick up what we were talking about a few moments ago, ladies, if we might. You both are essentially lifelong El Paso residents, both born just over there in Juarez.
Yes.
And both, I think, made a real strong point to me. American citizens, that your families went about this process the right way. How did your family go about it, Rosie?
My parents are from Mexico. I was brought here to Segundo Barrio when I was 4 years old. My parents got sponsored by their employers.
And Guadalupe?
Well, my dad joined the U.S. Army. They came first as residents, legal residents, joined the U.S. Army, and as a result of that, our entire family was able to become an American citizen.
And you were both making the point to me, which you're first generation immigrants, and there's a presumption about the point of view you hold that you feel like is completely inaccurate.
Absolutely. You know, there's an assumption that because we came here and immigrated legally that we're okay with this illegal immigration. And we are not. We are okay with immigration, but that's how we came. It's part of the American dream. We understand the want and the need to come to the United States of America. We're proud Americans.
Yes, we are.
But we want it to be done legally, and the assumption by a lot of people, this administration and our congresswoman, that we're okay with what's happening to our city right now is absolutely outrageous.
And Rosie, help me understand what is happening to your city. What changes have you seen take place?
Okay, there's a lot of criminal activity in my neighborhood. As soon as we got that 1,800, migrants coming in, it started. In October, I had a trafficking ring going on of human smuggling in my parking lot, my apartment complex. November, a house got busted for trafficking migrants across the street. December 23rd, there was a fight between a gang of a group of Salvadorian and Venezuelan guys. They got arrested. On the New Year's Eve, a guy came from out of town and started pointing a gun at the migrants by the church. He got caught the next day. And till this day, as we speak, there's still human smuggling in my neighborhood.
And you were telling me that's why, I mentioned it a moment ago, that's why you don't want to share your last name.
Correct. Because I'm like right there and it's happening and everybody, the neighbors are seeing it and we're scared. We're still not out of the woods. This is not okay.
And you feel like you could be targeted?
We can, because we're like right there on that same street, and people are scared. There's a lot of elderly people, tenants that live in my apartment complex that are scared, and we fear for our safety. This is not over.
And Guadalupe, you were talking to me about the way the city has changed in your lifetime, but the minute Rosie mentioned to you where she lives, you said, oh my, you've had a lot of trouble over
Yes. There are two types of immigration, illegal immigration going on. One type of people, they're coming through and they're asking for asylum, they're processed, and the NGOs are taking care of them. And then you have what they call the EWIs, entry without inspection. These are the people, they're running across our border highways and our I-10s, and they're getting run over by El Pasoans. Can you imagine how traumatic that is, to be going 60 miles an hour and come to a full stop because you see 5, 10, 30 illegal immigrants running across? You have to stop. And the other thing we're seeing is kind of dovetailing on what Rosie said. In downtown El Paso, they're struggling to recover from COVID, and now our businesses are getting phone calls from residents asking, is it safe to come down to downtown? And it's not, because just like Rosie said, we've seen an increase in crime. Our police department, wonderful police department, we're stretched thin. Border Patrol, we love you guys. They're stretched thin. Now you have a tent city. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Is that okay if I continue?
Yeah.
You have a tent city being set up, a soft-sided processing facility in northeast El Paso. No one consulted residents that are right across that highway. It's going up. Obviously, they're planning for this to continue, or they wouldn't be constructing it. And we just feel completely unheard by our mayor, our county judge, and our Congresswoman Escobar.
To be clear, this is vastly different than what you both have experienced. We were joking, I'm not going to ask them how old they are, but you've been in El Paso for a long time.
Absolutely.
This is vastly different than what you've experienced in your life.
Absolutely, yes.
I've never seen this happen. No. Never. And I migrated here since I was 4 years old. That's more than 50 years.
And quickly, we have to go, but I'm just curious, what have you seen happen over the last couple of days in preparation for the trip from the president?
I think that, they cleaned up downtown. They were telling them to take off their cams and leave, and they were cleaning up. I think that is absolutely not right. You do not clean up for the president, okay? The president, this is the president's fault, not our fault. So why would we clean up, So no, leave it like it is. Let him come and see for himself the real picture, He needs to know what's going on. Otherwise, he's going to come and say, oh, well, there's no crisis. No, that's not right.
Cleaning up for the president, but not for the people that live there.
Exactly. It has to be El Paso residents first.
Guadalupe, Rosie, what a wonderful conversation. We appreciate you getting up early with us and braving this cold this morning.
Yes.
I know you want to go put a coat on,
yes,
so go do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Escuchaste el análisis de la noticia, transparente como el agua, con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.